everyone, this is Karen.
Buongiorno, I'm Shane.
Today we're looking at part 1 of
Facts about Da Vinci, aka Il Frontine.
And the vocabulary words are consider.
Consider.
I consider the movie the funniest of the 80s.
It was so funny.
I know.
Detail.
Detail.
The book contains many details about the writer's childhood.
Fellow.
Fellow.
Felix is smart and polite, so his fellow students often ask him for help.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Nikola Tesla was a brilliant scientist who had a curious mind.
Standard.
Standard.
By today's standards, the movie is a bit slow.
Experiment.
Experiment.
The students did an experiment to test Newton's law of motion.
So we're talking about Da Vinci.
Right.
Leonardo Da Vinci?
Yeah, I mean, that's how everybody knows him, right? Leonardo Da Vinci.
Leonardo Da Vinci. Yes, of course.
But we find out today that actually that's not really his name.
That's not really his surname. Da Vinci is not his surname,
yeah,
right?
Da Vinci just means from Vinci. It's like saying Shane from Taipei.
Oh, okay.
But my last name is not from Taipei.
So I guess a lot of people didn't know that because I thought Da Vinci was his surname.
Yeah, but I think back then they didn't really have surnames like we do now. You would say you are the son of somebody
From a certain place.
Some place, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, it was different back then.
And another interesting fact that I learned about Leonardo da Vinci is that he actually wasn't very productive as an artist.
Right.
So he wasn't like painting all the time.
Because he had other interests.
A lot. He had a lot of other hobbies. He played the flute and he did other things, did experiments.
And even like his most famous painting, the Mona Lisa, actually wasn't even completed.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
It's interesting,
I didn't
right?
know that.
So they should call this interesting facts about Da Vinci. Lots of interesting facts.
Okay, so let's learn more.
Okay.
I can't wait.
All right.
Facts about Da Vinci, aka Il Florentine. Born in 1452 in the Italian countryside, Leonardo da Vinci is considered to be one of the greatest artists of all time. But unlike today's stars, about whose lives we know every detail, many facts about Leonardo's life and work are either misunderstood or not well known.
Today's lesson is called Facts about Da Vinci, aka Il Florentine. Part 1. Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Da Vinci.
Really?
I'm from Vinci.
You are from Vinci in Italy? That would be appropriate. If you were from Vinci, you could be Jeffrey Da Vinci.
Where are you from, Mike?
I would be Miguel
Canada?
Miguel de Montreal.
Okay. It's actually got a nice ring to it. But yes, today we're talking about Leonardo da Vinci, who is from Vinci? Or is he from Florence? Is that what's going on here?
It is a little confusing, but back then people's names weren't quite the same as ours. We're going to be learning about this and so much more. But yes, Leonardo da Vinci, the famous artist, the famous painter of the Mona Lisa. We're going to be learning all sorts of good stuff about him. And so the first sentence of our article tells us a few facts. It says, born in 1452 in the Italian countryside, Leonardo da Vinci is considered to be one of the greatest artists of all time. Absolutely, yes. If you asked your average person to name a famous artist, Leonardo da Vinci would probably be one of the first names to come out of their mouth. So that's why a lot of people consider him to be one of the greatest artists of all time. When we consider something, this verb basically means it's what we think. It's our opinion, okay? So if someone asks you, what do you consider to be the best choice? They're asking you for your advice, your suggestions, your opinion. What do you think about this topic or about this thing? For example, I consider the movie the funniest of the 80s. That movie is the funniest of all the movies that came out in the 1980s. That's my opinion. I consider it the funniest.
Anyways, yes, the best movie of the 80s.
The funniest.
Let me
funniest
the
movie.
funniest. Let me think about that for a while.
Okay.
For now, though, let's get back to Leonardo da Vinci. The next sentence says, but unlike today's stars, about whose lives we know every detail, many facts about Leonardo's life and work are either misunderstood or not well known. And this is true. He lived a very long time ago before we had the internet and Google News, where basically we now know everything about famous people, celebrities, so on and so forth. Anyways,
Leonardo never Instagrammed.
He never once Instagrammed, but you'd think he would have made a very good Instagrammer. Anyways, before we take a break here, let's talk about the vocabulary word detail. It's a noun. When you're talking about a detail, you're talking about information about someone. Now, details are usually not central pieces of information, okay? They're not central to anything, or they might not be the most important idea, but they're still pieces of information, and sometimes you want to know those pieces of information. For example, the book contains many details about the writer's childhood. Yeah, where did this person grow up? What was the house like? What was the town like? What school did they go to? So on and so forth. These would be details. All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a break. But don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。今天的课文标题是 Facts about Da Vinci, a.k.a. Il Florentine， 关于达文西的趣闻。那么其中的 a.k.a. 就是 also known as 的首字母缩写，是表达说又称为什么，别名是什么。那么 Il Florentine 则是意大利文，它表示说那个佛罗伦斯人。那这边补充一下 ，Florence 是佛罗伦斯，它是意大利的城市。那么 Florentine 则是可以当形容词形容佛罗伦斯的，或是当名词来表达佛罗伦斯人。好，那么里奥纳多·达文西呢，被认为是有史以来最伟大的艺术家之一。不过，关于他的事实，不是被误解，就是不为人所知。不像现在的明星，他们生活琐事都被大家掌握得清清楚楚的。老师们就开玩笑说，如果达文西是出生在这个年代，他应该会是个 IG 网红。好，补充一下 ，Instagram 在台湾常常被简称为 IG， 那它可以当动词来表达在 IG 上面发文、发 IG 照。如果重复字尾 M 再加 ER 变成 Instagrammer， 它是指 IG 使用者。好，再来看课文单字 consider。consider 是动词，表示认为，把什么什么看作。Be considered to be 再加名词或形容词就可以表达被认为是怎么样，其中的 to be 可以省略。再来看 detail。detail 表示细节或是琐事，这边还有两个重点。第一个 whose 当所有格关系代名词的时候，后面要接名词。那么 whose 所引导的关系子句是用来修饰前方先行词。举例来说 ，the man whose car was stolen， 就是说那名车子被偷的男子。好，那么当先行词是特定明确的对象时 ，whose 的前面必须加上逗号。那么这时候关系子句是用来补充说明先行词。例如 ，Mount Fuji, whose peak is covered with snow for several months a year, is the tallest mountain in Japan。富士山其山顶一年有好几个月被白雪覆盖，是日本最高的山。好，第二个重点。Either 什么什么 or 什么什么是配对连接词，它必须连接两个词性相同的字词。那么 either A or B 表示 A 或 B 其中一个，或是只说不是 A 就是 B。例如 ，The island can be reached either by ferry or by plane。你可以搭渡轮或是搭飞机前往那一座岛屿。接话课文中。
Facts about Da Vinci, a.k.a. Il Florentine. The most common mistake made about Leonardo is his surname. Many believe it to be Da Vinci, but Da Vinci simply means from Vinci. In fact, Leonardo didn't really have a surname in the way we think of surnames today. Leonardo's full birth name, Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci, means Leonardo, son of Ser Piero from Vinci. But his fellow painters just called him Leonardo, or Il Florentine, because he lived near the Italian city of Florence.
Okay, let's get back into things. We're talking about Leonardo da Vinci. Now, the most common mistake made about Leonardo is his surname. Some people think that Da Vinci is his last name, but like Mike said before, names back in the day, they didn't really work the way that they do now.
That's absolutely right. So his surname, his last name, we also might call that their family name, all right? The same name you share with everyone in your family. Many believe it to be Da Vinci. He was Mr. Da Vinci. His father was Mr. Da Vinci. His mother was Mrs. Da Vinci. But Da Vinci simply means from Vinci. So it wasn't a family name. It was just sort of separating Leonardo da Vinci from Leonardo da Roma or Leonardo da Verona, people from different parts of Italy with the same first name, Leonardo in this case.
So Da Vinci, it's not his last name. In fact, Leonardo didn't really have a surname, a last name, in the way we think of surnames today, okay? But he did have a full name. It wasn't just one and done Leonardo, that's it.
He wasn't Madonna or Beyonce
or Cher or
Cher.
Prince.
That's right. So what was his full name? If they wrote it down in the church or the hospital or whatever where he was born, what he would sign his credit card bills? No, he wouldn't sign credit card bills. But his full name, here we go. Leonardo's full birth name, Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci, means Leonardo, son of Ser Piero from Vinci. So his father, I guess, would have been Piero da Vinci, sure. But that was his full name, really just showing what the family relationship is to his father and the name.
I like how there are so many details in that particular name. Okay, where's he from? Who's his dad? There you go. These are good details. Now, there's more. Maybe when Leonardo was walking around and consorting with his peers, they might have called him something else. Yeah, it says next. But his fellow painters just called him Leonardo or Il Florentine because he lived near the Italian city of Florence. So when he was walking around talking to his fellow painters, they might not have called him Leonardo. They might have called him something else. Il Florentine, because he lived near Florence.
Interesting. Okay, so we're getting the idea that his name Leonardo was probably quite a common name, so you needed to find ways to sort. Do you mean the Leonardo from Florentine or the Leonardo from Venice? Oh, that's why they would use the place where the person lived or was born. This would be the way his fellow painters would talk about him. Friendly people, people in the same world, in the same business or occupation as well, because a fellow, if you say someone is a fellow da-da-da, that means they have this shared situation, this shared status with you. It's like saying a colleague or a co-worker or something like that. Your fellow students are the other kids who go to your school. Your fellow workers are the other people who might work in the same job that you have. So basically, it just means you're on the same level, you're in the same situation, or have the same status as another person or a group of people. For example, Felix is smart and polite, so his fellow students often ask him for help. These would be the kids in his class or the kids in his grade or year, the kids he goes to school with.
There you go. So Leonardo was a painter and he talked to other painters, his fellow painters. Anyways, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a break, but don't go away. We'll be back soon.
好，关于里奥纳多·达文西最常见的误解就是他的姓氏。很多人以为他姓达文西，但其实 Da Vinci 达文西指的是说他来自 Vinci。Vinci 是意大利佛罗伦斯省的一个城镇。那不过跟他同样是画家的人只会叫他里奥纳多，或是叫他那个佛罗伦斯人，因为他就住在意大利佛罗伦斯城的附近。好，文中的单字 fellow fellow 在这边当形容词表示同伴的或是同类的。那么它当这个用法当形容词的时候，必须摆在名词前面。那么 Jeff 老师刚刚用到 consort 这个动词 consort，consort 可以表达结交、厮混。那么 consort with somebody 就是表达跟某人厮混。这话课文中。
Facts about Da Vinci, aka Il Florentine. Also, for such a brilliant artist, Leonardo was not a productive painter by the standards of the time. He had so many other interests, such as studying nature, performing experiments, inventing machines, and playing the flute, that he often failed to finish his paintings, including his most famous work, the Mona Lisa. As a result, only 15 existing paintings have been credited to Leonardo.
Okay, more on Leonardo da Vinci. Great name or great names. He had many of them. What does Da Vinci mean? It just means he was Leonardo from a place called Vinci. Anyways, more on this unbelievably brilliant artist. Also, for such a brilliant artist, Leonardo was not a productive painter by the standards of the time. Yes, this is something that people don't realize. He actually didn't complete that many paintings. Seriously. Anyways, he was a brilliant artist, though. Okay, he was definitely a genius. By the way, if you are brilliant in this particular situation, you're super smart. You're super bright. Now, you're not bright like a light might be brilliant, but you're definitely extremely intelligent. You might even be a genius, I should say. For example, Nikola Tesla was a brilliant scientist who had a curious mind. Smart guy and curious too.
Absolutely, and definitely a genius there. All right, now we also have this word standard. By the standards of the time, Leonardo worked and painted quite slowly. Absolutely. What is a standard? It's sort of a common or accepted level. It's the norm that you would expect, the normal situation, the normal amount that you would expect. So, a standard temperature for the summer in Taiwan is around 30 degrees. That's kind of normal. It might go a little above, a little below, but if someone asked you, what's a normal summer day like? You'd say, it's around 30, and that's a pretty good standard, all right? For example, by today's standards, the movie is a bit slow. There's a lot of talking in this movie. Most movies these days have more action, but yes, if you travel in time to the future, the past, the standards in anything, they might change.
There you go. Now, Leonardo da Vinci was brilliant, great painter, actually not super productive as a painter, though. Get this, he had so many other interests, such as studying nature, performing experiments, inventing machines, and playing the flute. Yeah, he played the flute. That he often failed to finish his paintings, including his most famous work, the Mona Lisa. Wow. It went unfinished. Amazing. By the way, Leonardo da Vinci, quite the artist, also quite the scientist. He did perform experiments. By the way, when you do perform experiments, you do science, okay? You structure something, okay? A test to see whether something is true or not. That's an experiment. We're using this word as a noun. For example, the students did an experiment to test Newton's laws of motion. Yeah, let's figure out if this is true or not. Let's figure out how to test this. Let's make an experiment.
All right. So, yes, he rarely finished his paintings. As a result, only 15, that's right, only 15 existing paintings have been credited to Leonardo. I think they found a new one 5 or 10 years ago, right? That was kind of a surprise to people. But yes, as far as people know, only 15 paintings of his are around today because most of them were never really finished. And actually, this is something that Michelangelo used to get upset about because when Leonardo was given a job, Michelangelo used to write to the rich person who gave Leonardo the job. It's like, why did you give it to him? He's never going to finish that job. You should have given it to me. I work. I produce. But everyone knew, even then, Leonardo was brilliant.
That's true. All right, folks, with that, today's lesson is now in the books. But stay tuned, more fun is coming up next.
好，达文西是伟大杰出的艺术家，不过以当时的标准来说，他并不是一位多产的画家，因为他有太多其他兴趣了，像是研究自然啊、做实验、发明机器、演奏长笛等等的，兴趣太多了，以至于常常没办法完成画作。先来看3个单字 ，brilliant。Brilliant， 它是形容词，形容杰出的或是优秀的。那么 standard， 它可以指标准、水准或是规范。有一个意思相近的字是 norm，norm 可以表达标准或是规范。再来看 experiment 是指实验、试验。那刚刚 Mike 老师有聊到另外一位艺术家 Michelangelo， 就是米开朗基罗。据说啊，这个达文西和米开朗基罗这2位天才，他们之间合不来，有着余量情节哦。那么课文最后写到说，因此呢，只有15幅现存的画归在里奥纳多名下。那这边出现2个重点，第一个是副词片语 as a result， 表示结果，因此，例如Alice overslept this morning. As a result, she missed her train. Alice 今天早上睡过头，结果错过火车了。第二个重点是 credit， 它可以表达将什么归于什么，将荣耀啊、成就等等归功于什么。那我们可以用 credit something to somebody， 或者是 something be credited to somebody 来表达将某事物归功于某人。例如He credited much of his success to his wife. 他将自己的成功大部分都归功于他的妻子。好了，那么以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
Hello， 各位同学，大家好，我是季安老师。我们今天带大家看简短对话。Alright， 之前有讲到。不同题型，聆听的重点不同啊。如果是主旨相关的话呢，通常就是在前2句或者第一段一定会点出来啊，就看各位的耳朵够不够力了。那我们来继续多做一点练习啊。这一次是3题的练习啊。我们看到第一个 ，What is the couple talking about？ 这一段这对情侣是在谈论什么呢？通常啊，就是前2句就会有答案了。OK，Local geography， 当地的地理。B plans for their time off。就是要去哪里玩啊 ？Time off， 休假的时候去哪边玩 ？C what they plan to buy， 要买什么 ？D how they plan to travel， 怎么玩？17 what does the man say about the mall？ 关于这个 mall 这个商场，他说了什么 ？They won't need to spend much time there. They should go there every day of the long weekend. He doesn't want to go， 还是 it will be closed the whole weekend。最后 what do we know about the weather？ 等一下会讲到关于天气。It's going to be snowy this weekend. It has been cold and rainy recently. 最近呢又冷又湿的下雨嘛。It is constantly changing. 一直改变个不停。最后 It has been nice for the last few days. 这几天呢天气都蛮好的。OK， 所以呢我们来听一下哈，抓到这些主轴之后就开始听了。
Questions 16 through 18 refer to the following conversation.
What would you like to do for the long weekend coming up?
I think I'd like to check out the new shopping mall on the other side of town.
Well, okay, but that won't take a whole 3 days, right? How about we take a hike in the mountains on Saturday?
Sure. We could even go camping if the weather stays as good as it has been for the last couple of days.
OK， 这3题呢，应该就是前面就是照着这个顺序这样下来哈，就听完应该就可以做出来了。我们再听一次。
Questions 16 through 18 refer to the following conversation.
What would you like to do for the long weekend coming?
What would you like to do for the long weekend？ 哇，这个长假对不对？长长的周日假、周末假期，你要做什么事情
？I think I'd like to check out the new shopping mall on.
shopping mall， 我想要去 shopping mall， 所以呢，它是干嘛 ？B 吧哈，第一题是 B 啊 ，plans for their time off， 所以16题是 B。再来
，On the other side of town.
On the other side of the town。
Well, okay, but that won't take a whole 3 days, right?
That won't take a whole 3 days。那 shopping mall 不错啦，可是不可能去3天嘛。所以呢，第2个是什么 ？A 嘛 ，They won't need to spend much time there。最后。
How about we take a hike in the mountains on Saturday?
这都不是重点。
Sure. We could even go camping if the weather stays as good as it has been for the last couple of days.
Oh, if the weather stays as good as it has been for the last few days, OK， 所以呢，如果天气跟前几天一样好的话 ，OK， 所以呢，这三题是 B、A、D，OK， 这三题，我们看一下这个稿子啊。刚刚比较长、比较有挑战性的可能是这个啊。Sure, we can even go camping if the weather stays as good as it has been for the last couple of days. OK， 如果呢跟前几天一样好的话，那就可以去了。OK， 所以这样应该就还蛮清楚的哦。所以它的架构是这样。What would you like to do for the long weekend coming up？ 这边就是long weekend 你要做什么事情？第一题其实就可以出来了，对不对 ？Plans for their time off。再来呢，他说他要 check out the new shopping mall。Well, okay, but they won't。通常啊，这种转折词啊 ，but 这种东西后面就会有答案跑出来 ，OK。But they won't take a whole 3 days, right？ 其实不需要用到整整的3天嘛 ，OK。所以呢 ，they won't need to spend much time there。最后呢，他说 you can even go camping if the weather stays as good as it has been for the last couple of days. OK， 所以呢，答案就是 it has been nice for the last few days. Last couple of days 这边变成 last few days， 所以会有这个字词的代换，所以这一点非常重要。以上是我们今天的课程内容，我是季安老师，我们下堂课见，拜拜。
See you next time.